As Shelley says, I'm Craig and I'm based in Sheffield. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is the practical things we've done since learning more about childism and the philosophy through our PARS journey. So, being a play worker, I've always been an advocate, see myself as an advocate for play. So in 2006, I started my career and I worked as a play worker on the estate where I grew up. So I was one of those local people as well. Um, and I manage a charity called Mask in Sheffield, and we run a whole load of services and activities for children. Um, but more and more of my work in recent years, particularly since the pandemic, seems to be challenging adults and services that are failing our children, and s- failing that the simplicity of recognizing that children are children has been my little bugbear. One of my bugbears has been bugbears. Yeah, what I complain about to adults sometimes is the word childish. Like we use it like it's a bad thing. Some adults will criticize children and tell them to stop being childish or to grow up. We hear that a lot with the older young people that grow up. But then adults are also saying, why are the kids not playing out? Why have they got no imagination? Why don't they leave the rooms? But it's adults that have deleted the playtimes or reduced them. It's adults that accuse them of being involved in antisocial behaviour if they see them in groups in the street. It's adults that seem to have completely forgotten what it was like to be a child themselves, and we're criticising and almost punishing children for being children. And it's something that I think once you point it out, it's one of those things that then you start seeing everywhere and noticing. A great example on my estate is the Tara funded Tenson Residents Association funded a really nice games area for the children that like physical play. So it had got football, you can see it on the side of the screen. It's got football nets, basketball nets. It's got a little dugout for the ones that can sit in behind a fence so they can just sit and chill without the ball hitting them. It's got colourful things on the floor and it's used quite often. You see them in bikes, see them playing. But after only a year, the basketball hoops were removed. Is it because of antisocial behaviour, vandalism? No, it was because the adults didn't like the noise of children actually playing in a play area. And for me, that was a bit of a I felt a bit hard and a bit heartbreaking for those kids. So people had campaigned for this games area for quite a few years, fundraised, and yes, it was adults doing that on behalf of children, which is great. But then these other adults think that their needs come before the kids' needs in terms of noise. And noise, yeah, we know, isn't great if it's 24/7, but this particular games area was locked up at 7 p.m. at night. So is it unfair to have noise up till then? So when I was thinking about this and how in my practice and where I work, uh, might we take it into account better children being children and respecting them as little people themselves, I looked at it at three levels. So primarily looking at like the child level, then as an organization, and then the work I do in the city. So at a child's level, what we wanted to do was make sure that they had the freedom and permission to be children regardless of their age. And the PARS journey's been really good for us on that as well, actually. Being able to express to our team what me and Emma are doing when we're letting the children run around with drain pipes and hammers and whatever else they want to. Um, the other thing was that the children can feel like they can express emotions without the fear of being in trouble. It's sort of I've seen a lot more of since like eyes are open kind of thing. Too often we see adults punishing children because they're upset and they've lashed out. Is that a child's fault that they've not had long enough on this planet to regulate? And we include them in all decisions about them, and we want them to think that the setting's theirs and they own everything in it. Yeah, sometimes that can lead to some interesting conversations if you want to take it home. But it's 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 a good start, I think. At the organisation level, to help that happen, some of the practical things we did was we removed an upper age limit on our adverts, so that children can be children at any age. We're not telling them, um, oh, just because you've turned 13, you're now too old to come. We did that by planning some later sessions, so naturally it attracted the older young people up to 15. And we stopped using the word youth. When we had a meeting with the young people before we started it, they didn't want a youth club because a youth club to them had negative things. They hear the word youth and they said it felt like they were being criticised for being youths. So we call them hangouts instead. And we run very much with the play work model, even with those older young people. So we have loose parts, we have free access to stuff, and butt heads a little bit with our youth worker colleagues. We don't have a set curriculum and outcomes expected of them. But like you'll see in one of those photos, the young people are loving it. They're still playing. There's some lovely rough and tumble of them sitting on each other and pushing each other. And the beauty I like with this picture is as well, obviously they're older, they all carry mobiles. You'll see that that's even involved in that play. Like the lad's holding his phone in his hand while he's riding on another child on a scooter board. But they're having fun and linking things together. At a city level, we've then been doing a lot of work historically advocating for play, and it primarily surrounded around funding for play, play provision, and looking at parks and spaces. We've kind of changed that a bit now. Our focus is more about promoting and advocating for the children themselves to be involved in lots more of the policy and decision making. And I think we've done quite well actually. Sheffield City Council passed a motion in full council to acknowledge and recognise the importance of play and play work and that the children have a right to it. So rather than it being a lovely add-on, it's a necessity that they should be looking at. And they also finally acknowledged that they've had fantastic early years programs for years and fantastic youth provision. Yes, it's that could do more resource too, but it's there. Whereas between 5 and 13, the children in Sheffield are basically discriminated against because of their age. They're suddenly too old for the early years stuff and too young for the youth stuff. So they've just left to themselves. That's been a really good piece of work in Sheffield, and we're quite proud of that actually. So it's not just us. That's including Pittsmont Adventure Playground, Sharrow, which is managed Highfield Adventure Playground, and others as well. And bringing training providers into that has added a whole new dynamic. What else have we done? So we've developed a child first focus to our behaviour management in our setting. So the thing I keep saying on all my training and to my staff is as adults we've had longer on the earth to learn how to manage our emotions, but we still have bad days. There's still a day like you might drive to work and say the odd word when someone cuts you up. But how can we justify punishing a child for having a bad day too? Children are gonna have bad days, just like us, little humans. Um, if they're not feeling great, the odd word might slip out, the odd behavior might slip out. Why, why should we punish them for that? So our policy is around trying to help them learn about where that emotion came from and how to deal with it, rather than having a punishment. Oh, sorry, let's just move that there. There we go. Bro, sorry, I got distracted by the chat then. We've hosted and will continue to host more opportunities for the children to meet with elected officials as well. So that went really well when we met with a local councillor. Um, she asked the young people, and most of them present were aged between 11 and 15, why they don't use the local parks. And they were really honest and brutal with her. Um, Basically, one of them said because adults bully us. Adults moan at us if we've got our hoods up because we look like thugs. They moan at us when we wear fashion clothes because it's well, mostly black and, and hooded was what they were wearing at the time. They were saying adults criticize them if they're playing Tiggy in a park. They feel like people think they're running drugs. They were saying if they're hiding in bushes, playing hide and seek, they feel like they're being judged and hiding and going to jump out and attack somebody. And those meetings have been really important. And the next one coming up is facilitating the conversation with the children and the local council around our secondary schools and uh, what I think is abuse, what they're putting up with. We've also supported young people to write complaint letters about their play facilities that are being removed, particularly for the older young people. They're the first to go, like the basketball nets. We've got loads of parks and green spaces in Sheffield. They're lovely, and we've got loads of spaces that are designed for under fives. Um, but for the older young people, we just seem to think muggers, multi-use games areas are the way forward because they all just love playing football, apparently. Um, we've also used our adult voices in networks and with partners to represent the children. And again, like I said, not just advocating about play, but advocating about health and education settings too. And we look out for involvement to be involved in policy development. So we've been fortunate in Sheffield that we've been commissioned to work with Out School Alliance to support the council with the National Wraparound Care Expansion Programme. So we're there with the council, policymakers able to say that we want these new clubs to be child first, play work based, and definitely not homework clubs, as one of the schools wanted to open. And this year, we've been investing in training for children and young people themselves to help them be ambassadors in their own program. We've been really fortunate to get some funding from Clarion Futures and Places for People. And my deputy Emma is going to be working with recruiting some community ambassadors that are going to work with other members of the community to give them a voice, and they'll in the community hopefully get to meet some of the older generation and get some conversations going about how they played as a kid and how knock a door run isn't them attacking you, because most of us did that when we were kids too. So having some conversation about how it might make people feel, so maybe they shouldn't do it, but not that they need to call the police on them all the time. And that's going to be a really good project, we think, and hopefully ending up taking those young people to Parliament as well. Do, do, do. Children are children. What's age got to do with it? Um, the age thing is a real thing with me that like I find really fascinating when it comes to us as a society and young people. We have a fixation on telling young people that they've got to grow up and be responsible. So when they go to secondary school, suddenly they're in smart uniforms, silent corridors, silent lunch times, and then we don't give them any control or say. So if we want them to act like adults and grown-ups in society, shouldn't we give them the same voice as adults and grown-ups in societies? But we also limit them so much with the whole you've got to grow up. The part of our training and stuff lately and our experimenting has included forest school work. So we sent one of our staff members on forest school training and he ran a pilot for us in the local park. And it was amazing to see how the children were just children in that park environment when they were given permission, and having a 14-year-old running around giggling with 4-year-olds digging holes to find coal or whatever they were doing in their mining industry at that time because they wanted to make some money, but they'd hired some security guards, so some of the other kids wouldn't let me near to see what they were mining for. And it's fantastic for the younger children as well as those older ones to be able to play together without that age. And we really do love it. The photo there as well, I've picked on purpose. You might not be able to see on the smaller screen, but we also acknowledge that children are children, have different days, different wishes. The girl in the little shelter there, that's Emma's daughter from my deputy. So some of you know Emma. And then the lad in the back with his head in his hand, just sat in a chair, is my nephew. Most of our photos are staff kids because that's the easiest for permissions. But also this photo, I think, says it all. He wasn't miserable and unhappy being there. He enjoys and loves being outdoors, but he just wanted to sit and rest. And for us, that concept of letting children be children as well is about us recognizing that and allowing children to make those decisions for themselves if they just want to sit there and watch the passers-by. Uh, we do let them. For me, it's about what I want to do is make a stand. Someone joked earlier about like people won the rights by by fighting, and I do think we're getting to the point where, personally, uh, the way children are being treated at the moment in our society and culture, maybe they do need that support to stand up and save themselves. And there are examples of that you can um, see in the media. The boys not being allowed to wear trousers made a stand, turn up in skirts. In other schools, pupils going on strike. In one of our local secondary schools, they wouldn't allow them to take the blazers off in the heat wave last summer. So 80 of them just did it anyway and all got suspended together as a group, uh, using their collective voice to demonstrate that that's not right. And I think that as play workers, I think yes, we advocate for play and recreation, but I think we're in a very privileged position that we're able to be these trusted adults for these young people. So can we support them to make a stand in other areas too? So they might get some real change. My contact details there, if people want to get in touch. Our website is master.org.uk. So our setting, uh, I love our setting. So we provide wraparound care after school and holidays and short breaks for children with disabilities. So those sessions, the children don't really get a choice. They have to come because the parents bring them. But then we also run community activities, part of the HAF program, our community hangouts where children can just come, and we mix all the children together so no one knows who's paid, who's not, who's here for this, who's here for that. Um, and throughout it all, we are quite passionate that the children be the children. And I've talked really quickly. I thought I'd end up running over, so time for any questions or comments.